So everyone always sees editing as the edits, where for me it's everything between the edits, the length of the shot, the content of the shot. My name's Adam Gough, and I'm an editor from London. I've recently completed Alfonso Cuarón's Roma. At university, I did a film and video technology degree, so it was the technical aspects of post-production. So I was kind of learning how to wire cinemas for sound and what all the different types of cables were and the digital signals that were going over them. I got into editing through assistant editing. So after university, my first role in the industry was as a cutting room runner, and then I've slowly progressed up through the hierarchy within the cutting rooms until I became an editor in my own right 5 years ago. When I started as a runner in the cutting room, I had this great technical capability that I think kind of progressed me through my first few films. I could quickly jump under an Avid and rewire it and fix it. And I've always felt, definitely in my own career path, that editing's been a bit of an apprenticeship. I've had the privilege of working with fantastic editors, and I've just been learning by watching what they've done. And then during that same time as assisting, I was cutting short films on the side, just cutting my teeth, getting the hours in, and learning the craft while still apprenticing as an assistant of fantastic editors. And hopefully that's now all coming together and working for me. Editing is the invisible art. I personally am quite a technical editor, so I do a lot of comping and respeeds and manipulating shots within the Avid, but the heart and soul of a cut is just making the correct choices and finding the right tempo. At its very essence, it's a very creative process which you just have to invest time into to find it. So that isn't a technical skill, it's more of an emotional skill. Your first reaction of anything is going to be the only time you have a first reaction to it. So it's very important to remember your initial thoughts and ideas where you see something for the first time. But when you make the initial edit on a scene, you've not created the entire film yet. It's not until you can watch it in sequence with everything else as in an entirety. A film needs to breathe and move in a whole, not just the scenes within it. Everything needs to stand up together. So really, the initial reactions you're having, maybe to the shot selections, will hold up. There's always times you need to go in and reshape certain areas of a cut, but I would say those initial edits aren't always going to match where you end up at the end. You're going to find there's a lot of to and froing. It's an accordion. You just constantly stretching it and compressing it and just finding the correct rhythm. Grosse Point Blank. That was when he goes back to his high school reunion, but he goes back to see his mother who has Alzheimer's, and he hasn't seen her in a while, and for a moment their conversation, she's completely fluid. She remembers who he is, and then at the end of this scene there's a moment where she loses it all for a moment and just forgets everything again, and it was a pinnacle point in the film where he kind of hits rock bottom. And usually for those moments in an edit, you would cut to a close-up and you'd play the emotion on his face. And I remember in this film, there was a stylistic choice where it cut to a reverse, and there's a shot of his shoulders dropping, and it kind of played this big moment of hitting rock bottom in a wide. And I remember just being fascinated by the editorial choices at that point, and I'm becoming more aware of the power that you have in coverage. Well, my creative process has been continually evolving, so it depends on the director and the schedule. Usually I would try to get a rough cut in pretty quickly just to make sure the coverage was good. On Roma, because we had the privilege of a good amount of post-production, we could just take our time with it. Ultimately, the essence of all processes are just reviewing everything, like having good instincts to build a scene using kind of the right beats that you think. I believe you should watch all footage and not just focus on selects. And it depends on what the scene is. Sometimes you might just find what you feel is the heart, the center beat of a scene, find the right moment that works, and then grow the scene out to the beginning to the end, or just sometimes just work in from the start towards the end of it. So I guess my processes just take time with it. And I think as myself as an editor, I have a slight insecurity where I feel that it's never good enough. So I'm constantly reworking it and reworking it. And I'm not sure if that's because it's not good enough or if it's just a certain drive that I believe that you can always make it better, but you can, and experiment. It's another very important part of the process, is to experiment, to try things that you don't think will work, because sometimes you'll be surprised. Sometimes what sounds like a terrible idea might be the little bit of magic that you've been looking for all along. For me, editing isn't... What's more important than choosing the in and the out of a shot is choosing the shot itself. Finding the emotion, finding the character behind it, what's the most important beat that you're trying to hit. So everyone always sees editing as the edits, where for me it's everything between the edits, the length of the shot, the content of the shot. So all of those elements of the creative process, which are, and editing is rewriting. So it's not that it was edited originally. So you have a draft of the script, then it's rewritten when you shoot it, and then the last rewrite is the edit. So on some of the scenes, Alfonso shot, there's one in particular, a hail sequence, where he shot it 60 times. So that shot plays for 3.5 minutes. When you lay all of those takes down on a timeline, that's 3 hours of material. So you have to watch that 3 hours to find the take that you feel works best within the entirety of the story and hit the right rhythm for that. So that particular moment of choosing that shot took us 2 days, because that's how much time it takes to analyse, to work out where you want to go. Most cuts in Roma have that rhythm of trying to not force a flow or do anything stylistically with it. It's not cutting and jumping you into the moment. Everything gives you a beat to soak it in, to find the new space. And also with the way that it's shot, on a wide shot like that with so much detail and information, sometimes you just need a moment to familiarise yourself with it as a viewer. I was receiving dailies when I was in London while they were shooting in Mexico. I went out at the beginning when they were setting up just to look at the workflow and meet everyone there. But it's just the usual editor's investment to it, going through making the selects with Alfonso and setting the rhythm and the pacing. We work together through everything, so we didn't deal with scenes individually. The way that we work is during the shoot I would just watch the footage, start building my own opinions, do an assembly just to learn the footage. And then day one of post-production we sit down together and start from the beginning, from scene one, and we build the cut together. And there's no what one's doing and what's the other doing. It's a constant collaboration of conversation. So it's just doing it all together. That's just the way he wanted it to make it from the beginning. When he explained the movie to me before starting, black and white was part of it. It was part of his memories and kind of how he remembers it, really. So it was always designed that way. It was shot for black and white. We posted for black and white. Of course, Mexico City in the 70s is not Mexico City as it is today. There was a big earthquake in 1985 that actually destroyed a lot of the architecture. So the exterior of the hospital, for instance, or the avenue that they cross, are set builds which we've had to extend with VFX to match the buildings that were there from the period. And then a lot of period cleanup in other shots, removing aerials or satellite dishes. But Alfonso's a director that really understands every element of filmmaking, and especially post-production. Of course, from his work with Gravity and Children of Men, he knows visual effects. So we were it almost felt limitless with what we could do in the fixes. Like the aeroplanes, for example. We didn't have the budget to fly DC-7s, period planes across the set to match it. Those were all elements that we timed and added in post-production, and VFX made look perfect. So the whole world as a whole, VFX aside, when you bring sound in and the edit, it just becomes one. Finally being involved with something of that caliber and creatively invested in it means a lot. There's been a few great experiences on films I've worked on. I really enjoyed In Bruges and Children of Men, which was the first film that I worked on. You can get days where it's a very complicated edit with lots of little elements going on within it. There can be days where you have a 9-minute take and you can cover 9 minutes. So it doesn't really feel like it kind of matches when you have a script, when you can kind of cut sides, when you know a page of a script is going to be a minute or how long that's going to take to shoot. Completely comes down to content. Sometimes it can be antisocial and stuff where you lose weekends and evenings because deadlines are coming up. So you find that you have to invest quite a lot of yourself into the industry. Of course, it depends on kind of what aspect where you want to go. There are pleasant elements of editing. I'm sure you can get jobs at facilities, but I've definitely found in my career path that it's kind of been a barrage of hours that I've enjoyed doing, but I have realised that in pursuing my goal in becoming an editor, I've been quite focused on that elsewhere. It sounds quite miserable when I say it like that, doesn't it? But I love what I do, so to be honest, it doesn't feel that hard. Sometimes you just can hit a wall with a scene, and it could just be as simple as going to the next scene. Sometimes it could be just as simple as getting up and making a cup of tea and then coming back 10 minutes later. I do find there's certain elements of post-production where I can watch a cut with fresh eyes again. A great trick is watching it with an audience, so getting away from the avid and having other people in the room and being able to read the emotion of that, and you see the cut with fresh eyes. And then when you go into the sound mix or into the DI and you sit back and you watch other people working on the film in different ways, sometimes you don't always have a schedule to be able to back away from it. Sometimes you just have to work through moments where you're having a bit of writer's block, and it can be tricky. But ultimately, I think through just collaboration and having conversations with other people, you can get inspiration. There is a certain natural talent and ability that you have to have from the start, I think, in just decision making and creativity, but ultimately there's a certain amount of time you need to invest in honing your craft and becoming better at the skill and the art. I think as long as you have a passion for it and you're willing to work hard, those are the most important things. You need the passion. If you don't have the passion, there's no point at all, because when the hours get tough, I don't know what's going to motivate you to get through it. A passion for film, a passion for filmmaking, a love of storytelling, but really just a drive to want to do it and be willing to tackle the hard hours and the hard work. Hours. It's all hours, whatever you do.